Quick question. Raise your hand if you were not alive 35 years ago. I think that really says something about how weird this movie is, that for some reason it's still resonating. And you know, so I worked with Steve on the previous movie. We were working on a movie called Animal Olympics. And at the time, I remember you talking about this idea, which was so new that none of us really had processed it. And I have to say, throughout the making of this movie, you were always philosophizing about what it meant, and we were going. I remember your idea about like frontiersmen looking down on the mountain where nobody had been before. Why is this movie so relevant today? What is it about what you were thinking of then that still resonates today?
Before I get into that, I want to say one thing about Bill, which was that our studio came from Boston, and we were self-taught in animation and film. We went to film school, but it was an East Coast rebellion thing. We didn't understand Hollywood. And, non-linear filmmaking, it was called. But anyway, we came out here, and Bill had been trained at Disney, and Jerry Reese and Brad Bird, and these Disney guys left because nothing was really happening that was that exciting at the time at Disney, and they came to work on Tron, starting with Animal Olympics. And it was just amazing how thorough their education was in film and story. And it really impressed me. And so we got the light cycle sequence, and I looked at Bill, and I basically said this to myself, but I said, well, Bill, if you're so smart, figure this one out. And boy, did they figure that sequence out. Really, they did an incredible job. The other part about, you know, at the time, I've been asked this question recently by a French film magazine, and they said the guy's English wasn't very good, so he said, how do you predict the future? Like, I knew the secret. So, and I said, well, we weren't trying to predict the future. Well, and maybe someone could use this information. It was divided up into certain interests. We were very interested in film, and animation is sort of software for live action, so it reduces film to its basic components. We were discovering computer animation. We were talking to people that were programmers and doing personal dreaming of a vision of the internet and personal computing. And also special effects in terms of backlight animation. And in each one of these, and composite, there was no film composite. So everybody was separate. And if you spent time talking to the people in each one of these arenas, they would it would be like a compass heading. They would point to a future, but they weren't sure where the future really was. But they weren't talking to each other. We were talking to all of them together, and if you lined up the arrows, they intersected somewhere up ahead. But we couldn't converge all these techniques because there was no digital compositing. So, but with film, you can find a way to do, you know, it's called movie magic. And so we contrived ways to converge all of these techniques, and to our amazement, it actually worked. And so I think predicting the future means finding intersections by looking at different things and seeing where they might meet up ahead.
Well, it was the classic scenario of jumping off a cliff and building your wings on the way down. You know, I mean, you started this movie, and the sample.
You build the light cycle of the way down.
Well, yeah. The reels we had at the beginning had nothing in them that showed the capability that ended up on the screen 2 years later. The movie the technology was invented as it went along. But I just remember your core idea, which is so compelling, it still is, of a guy who basically creates a world. He's a god who creates a world, then he goes into that world, and he meets the creatures he created.
Well, there were two classic archetypal characters. Bruce played one and Jeff played the other. And Bruce played a role that is really unusual, which is a person trying to communicate with themselves. I mean, if you think about it, it's really only in Tron where a person actually says, I've got to get in touch with myself. Otherwise, all is lost. And it was a really big deal for him. And in a way, Tron was trying to be reprogrammed by himself, which is, I think, something that we all are struggling with, you know, to make ourselves more than we are, trying to get in touch with the best in ourselves. And then Jeff played the role of the founder, creator, shaman, who had two friends that were in trouble because they lost their programs and they were kind of sick. And the shaman then goes into the spirit world and he rescues and heals, brings the spirits back and reconnects them with themselves. And I didn't know any of this when I made the film.
I was about to ask Bruce, did he actually have these philosophical discussions with you about the character?
No, we talked about the tights we had to wear, and Steven debating me as to how well I could throw a frisbee. And I became pretty damn good on a frisbee, my friend. I haven't touched one since in the last 35 years. But no, we didn't. But I, as an actor, I'm asked about Tron all the time, all the Comic-Cons I do throughout the country and the world. And I'm still amazed, and thank you all for being fans of this movie. And the sequel. Because it's still alive. I don't know how many sequels to E.T. there are, and I came out the same summer, did it not? Same year? And you can quote me on that. I do want to fix one thing though. At a Comic-Con, I was doing a podcast, and I was asked about something, and believe me, I'm asked questions way above my pay grade, okay? About when the next movie was going to be, are you going to be in it, or is there going to be, blah, 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 blah. And I said, I'm done with it. I said, I am done with it. Well, I saw this online somewhere. Bruce Boxleitner is done with Tron. And I got some tweets I want to tell you. So I just wanted, if anybody's going to, tweet about this later, please quote me correctly. I didn't mean I was done with Tron. Like these two gentlemen, Tron's not done with us.
There is one insight I had as a result of the ride in China, and it's coming to Florida. And it made me think how, in a way, Tron sort of predicted electric vehicles. Because the ride is electromagnetic. And, some of the films I look at now, they seem, how do I put this? They seem like they burn an awful lot of fossil fuel. Not just in the making of the movie, but in the idea of the movie, it's a little bit like, wow, this is amazing how much, kerosene those jet engines and rocket engines use. And, I sometimes wonder, did Elon Musk think about the light cycle?
Well, it's not usual to get Steve out in the public like this. We're so lucky to have him here. So I just have to ask you, on this 35th anniversary, if there's one thing about the movie that the fans should know that they might not know from your experience, what would you want to share with them?
Oh, that's really tough. I think that I would have to say that at the time, Tron was accused of being too cerebral. But I've always felt that astonishment and inspiration is an emotion too. Not just sentimental emotions, but mind-blowing art and visuals and music. Astonishment is a real emotion. And I think that's one of the things that we did accomplish. And that's one of the, the film holds up, I think, in that regard. And that's been really good to see and feel and experience.
I don't know if you, the audience, know this, but the Visual Effects Society is the Association of Visual Effects Artists, and a couple of years ago they voted their top 50 most influential visual effects films of all time, and Tron was number 6. Preceded by a couple of little films you may have heard of, like Star Wars and Empire. But it was nice to know that among the professionals it has that, because the fans certainly love it, and when you talk about astonishment, I can say every single person that worked on it had that same astonishment making it. I remember saying every morning was Christmas morning, seeing something new that nobody had ever seen before, to go into work every day and do something nobody had ever done before. There's nothing.
Yeah,
nothing
I worked on, I was one of the producers on Legacy, and it was a radically different experience. We literally did not know how this was going to come together until it came together. It was impossible to mimic the techniques on any small scale. We had a great painter named Peter Lloyd, and he kept doing these airbrush paintings in advance that the movie was going to look like this, right? It was going to look like this, and and then it would change, and he would say, "You're not following the paintings," and we couldn't follow the paintings because the technique that we were using could only exist. We couldn't mimic it on a small scale. We had to make the whole movie to see what this might be like. And Peter, he's not with us anymore, but he got so mad at me so many times when the movie was done.
Any final thoughts on this iconic character?
I just think it's a movie. I mean, take a look around you today in all the films that you see. There's still nothing, the world that we all created in these characters, nothing looks like it yet. There's nothing that you say, oh, it's kind of Tron. Well, they have to always say it's Tron-like, you know? But the world, Steven, that you created, the grid, nothing looks, the artwork, nothing looks like it today.
It was a bridge between the analog world and the digital world, literally. Right? And, you know, once we crossed to the other side, it's like that was, you know, the bridge was, no one needed the bridge anymore.
Well, it was
Hollywood now made it to the other side.
Yeah,
But
it took them a while.
You know, for the young people in the audience, you have no idea how much Hollywood dreaded computers.
Oh.
I mean, when we showed up at Disney Studios and just said the word, it was like people broke out garlic and silver bullet. it was, we were the children of the damned. And it was, you know, yeah. And now to see that the story came true and we're all in there, you know.
Well, we're living the future it predicted, aren't we?
Well, of course, there's the famous thing that a guy named John Lasseter would come in and look at the Tron footage, and that was the thing that inspired him to get involved with computer graphics, and that's had quite a legacy as well. So. Well, we could literally talk all night about this, and if you've never read about how it was made, you should look into it, but I think for now we're going to let you guys watch the movie, so please give a round of applause to the